Hello, my name is Joss Morkins. I'm the program chair for our postgraduate programs in translation studies and translation technology at Dublin City University. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our programs as part of the postgraduate event at DCU this June. So I'm going to talk a little bit about DCU in general, then specifically about our master's programs in translation, a little bit about our on-campus facilities, and then a little bit about careers and how to apply. At DCU, our mission is to transform lives and societies through education, research, innovation, and engagement. And these sort of mission statements might sound a little bit bland, but actually they really set the tone throughout the university and is something that we try to abide by. We're ranked in the top 2% of universities globally and 23rd in the world and first in Ireland for actual rates of graduates employed within 12 months of course completion. Our rate of employment for the translation programs is very, very strong. And we're ranked 88th out of over 1,400 universities globally, according to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, something we also take very seriously within our school and our faculty. The MA in Translation Studies, our code for applications is DC 615, is actually Ireland's longest running master's program in translation, having started in 1992. It offers advanced linguistic and technical training. So there's translation practice modules from French, German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese into English, but also from English to Irish. For applicants that are working in English-Irish, there's an opportunity for a fee subvention that's supported by the Higher Education Authority in Ireland, which means that your fees will be roughly half of it should be paid from this scholarship, depending on numbers. Then the modules within the program include simulated translation bureaus. This is a module where you'll form a small translation or model translation company with roles that involve managing the projects or looking after the IT needs or looking after finances within your bureau, but also carrying out quoting, pricing for, then carrying out translations and delivering them as you would within a translation company. This offers students an opportunity to bridge the gap between theory and practice in translation. We've got other modules looking at computer-aided terminology, computer-aided translation. That includes a focus on machine translation and computer-aided translation tools. We look at localization, audio-visual translation, and there are lots of other opportunities and modules that you can choose besides. Our program is tightly aligned with the translation industry, and I'll come back to that in a little while, but we regularly have members of the industry and speakers who come in and will speak and meet with you, and we'll offer an opportunity to network as part of our program. Our lecturers are very experienced and highly research active, another point that I'll come back to in a little while. There are 60 credits that are taught on the program, and then for the final 30 credits, you'll have an option of a dissertation that's supervised by a member of staff or a work placement over 12 weeks over the summer. So the program takes place from September to September. We're a member of the European Masters in Translation Network, and this is a sort of quality standard that sets out competences to be taught across programs in Europe. This standard is reached by, or has been reached between 2019 and 2024 by around 70 programs throughout Europe. So each of these programs have a representative at the European Masters in Translation Network. And there's a board of the network where I sit, and we try to guide how translation teaching changes and should change within Europe. Our other translation program is the MSc in Translation Technology. So our specialization in DCU is very much to do with translation technology, but there's more of a narrow focus on translation technology in this DC 700 program. Again, we've advanced in in-demand technical training. We add elements of programming and of development using Python. It's non-language specific. So if your language pair isn't covered by the languages that are focused on within the MA in Translation Studies, this gives another opportunity to join our program. So we often have students who are focused on lots of different languages throughout the world. We have a lot of students that focus on Arabic or on Chinese, but with the English-Chinese language pair, or on various other language pairs that wouldn't be catered to within the MA program. Again, it's tightly aligned with the translation industry, have the same experienced and research active lecturers, again, the option of a dissertation or work placement, and again, it's a member of the European Masters in Translation Network. Details of our programs are on our online prospectuses. If you go to, if you search for DCU SALIS, which is our school, the School of Applied Language and Intercultural Studies, SALIS, and search for MA or MSc, you'll find details of our program structure and our requirements and the individual modules that are options or are part of the program for you. So you'll have to complete 60 credits in course modules over 2 semesters. The modules might be 5 or 10 credits each. There's assessment with essays, projects, reflective work, very few examinations. And then the research theses are of 12,000 words. For a work placement, you'll also have to complete a week-by-week diary of your work, roughly around 12,000 words again. Our requirements for entry are to have a degree of level higher 2.2 or equivalent, and you can have a look at on DCU's website or at qqi.ie to look for equivalents. But we do also have related professional experience that that could qualify you. We require a personal statement, a curriculum vitae, and for those of you that aren't first language English speakers or who haven't completed an undergraduate degree through English, will require proof of English language competence. For Irish, we require the TEG B2 qualification, and there's some wriggle room there. So you might otherwise, if you don't have the B2 qualification in hand, be able to take a translation test with Professor Kieran McMurkin, who looks after our English-Irish translation. Our network, which you'll be able to avail of through invited talks and through our own personal connections as a program and as individual researchers, include universities around Europe. I've already mentioned our connections as part of the European Masters in Translation Network, but because we're highly research active as staff members, we tend to have give a lot of invited talks and presentations for universities around the world. So, for example, in the last year or two, I've traveled as a distinguished research visitor to the University of Queensland and to universities in the UK. My colleagues Dorothy Kenny and Sharon O'Brien and Pat Cadwell and Mary Phelan have traveled to universities worldwide to give talks or have given them online. We also regularly have technology companies give invited talks, and we sometimes have research collaborations. So we have good contacts in particularly the Irish-based technology companies. So the Irish branches of Microsoft, of Google, of Facebook, of LinkedIn. We have good connections with translation and localization companies. Since the 1990s, Ireland has been a hub for localization. So there's a very thriving industry here. We work closely with the public service. I mentioned previously Professor Kieran McMurkin, who is very tightly aligned with the Irish Public Service translators and the department for with responsibility for the Irish language. And we have institutional links. So once a year, we usually travel to the European institutions. A lot of our graduates work within the European institutions or within the World Intellectual Property Organization or the United Nations. And we keep close links with these sort of organizations so that we can see when there are opportunities for our students and graduates. Our lectures mostly take place within the Glasnevin campus in Dublin City University. We returned to campus last year after the COVID pandemic, and we continue to be guided by Irish government public health advice. But we've learned to be flexible over the last year or two, as many university and colleges have. Our in-person lectures are supported by Loop, the DCU virtual learning environment, and the supporting materials and the requirements as part of the program will be very clear within the Loop pages for individual modules and at program level. At the moment, there's no quarantine requirements coming into Ireland, but that may change over time. The academic calendar for 2022-23 is now online, or at least an outline version of it, and lectures will begin on September 12th of 2022. The building we work within has modern and excellent facilities, and our computer labs for practical work and for working on your own projects within the program was recently refurbished, and you can see a picture of it here, and that was opened in June of 2020. So our MTS and MTT graduates often stay within the translation industry, not necessarily as translators, some as professional translators, as freelancers, or within companies, often within the European institutions. So usually 1, 2, or 3 every year join the European institutions, and there's a strong demand, particularly for graduates that have the Irish language. But also lots of jobs within the translation industry. Again, not necessarily as translators, but perhaps as localization engineers, or specialists in advising what sort of translation or localization workflows should be followed. Some move into the audiovisual translation industry, not necessarily as subtitlers, although some do, but also working in audio description. We've got good links with STI Iuno Media, who are the world's biggest organization for audiovisual translation. And Shak Yousaf from that company gives talks to our students every year and is a good point of contact for audio description for the blind or partially sighted. Some graduates moving to the publishing industry, some move into broadcasting, into general information technology, and there are good opportunities in companies that focus on data and artificial intelligence. And usually 1 or 2 of our graduates move on to PhD programs, sometimes within DCU with us, sometimes elsewhere, in Limerick, or in Cork, but often in other countries, often around Europe or in China or in Japan. So to apply, you can have a look at our website at dcu.ie/postgraduate. You'll find details of applications. There's a specific postgraduate page for our school, SALIS, S-A-L-I-S, as I mentioned, or you can look for the course codes DC615, our MA in Translation Studies, or DC700, our MSc in Translation Technology. As I've stated, you'll need to provide transcripts, your statement of interest, why you want to join the program, your CV, but that's all detailed on our online prospectus. The closing date for non-EU applicants is coming quite soon on the 1st of July 2022. The closing date for EU applicants is the 31st of July 2022. We usually have a cutoff point of 40 students or so between both the MA and MSc. So far we have 34 offers and accepts that have progressed. So we still have some more places available. If we reach our cutoff point, we may close before the 31st of July. So it's better to apply sooner rather than later, or at the very least to begin your application sooner rather than later. But if you have any queries, there'll be a Q&A available via this platform, but otherwise you can drop me an email. My email address is here. It's joss.morkins@dcu.ie. So thank you very much for watching, for your time, and for your attention.